Hey everyone, this is take two, but you don't know that because you never heard the take one.
And no one ever will.
Well, literally, you would hear 40 seconds of an hour and a half long episode because somehow, for some reason, oh wait, can we see audio on this?
Let's make sure.
Hold on, guys. We're going to just have a little bit of snafudoodling here.
There it is. It's
okay,
right there.
Well, okay. It's working.
It's working.
Okay. So we did this awesome episode on depression. And it was unhinged because, as you can see on YouTube, we are here together because I am in Wisconsin. So we're unhinged enough when we are miles and miles and miles apart. But when we are together, it's another story.
It all goes to hell.
Yeah. in a pretty little handbasket, though. Anyways, so we recorded this episode and then I didn't touch it for like 4 days.
I leave that underwater by myself.
Okay. I didn't touch it for like 4 days. And then Friday morning rolls around and before work, I'm like, I'm going to edit this episode so it posts. And we had 40 seconds of audio of an hour and a half long recording. I don't know what happened. And there was no like fixing it. Like the video was all there. So we could have done a voiceover, but I don't think that actually would have turned out very fun for any of the parties involved.
We'd have to actually remember what we
said. And like, oh yeah. And here we must have said something stupid because we're both like cackling. Like, so we were just like, okay.
I mean, we could do a commentary.
We'll
do a commentary video.
We could do a commentary, like a reaction video.
What the fuck was she saying? What the fuck am I saying?
And then like we got busy and then like Nibbler had a thing and
pancreatitis,
but he acted like he was dying.
I thought he was dying.
Yeah, there was concerns there. So this is coming to you very late.
And then I had to cancel my vacation because
of Nibbler.
Nibbler's
because
pancreatitis.
We thought he was dying.
Yeah.
And he's not, and he's fine now.
Which really sucks because I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah,
one.
Tell us about what you were gonna do.
I was gonna go to this place called Eric's Ranch in Montana. First of all, it's in Livingston, Montana, which is this cute little hippie town. Where
very 420 friendly.
Everything's awesome. So I like that. And then Eric's Ranch is a place, it's a nonprofit that is run completely by autistic young adults. So they like rent cabins, and so they do all the work on that. And they like have experiences that
you're gonna brush a horse.
Yeah, I was gonna brush a horse, and like so these autistic young adults will be like leading you on those things. They were in this thing on Netflix, which I can't remember the name of right now, but there was like a 15-minute thing about them, and they have hikes that you can do. When we were going to do 2 hikes, and I was really excited for those. And in the video or in the show, the guy taking them on the hike was super into rocks, and I just like could not wait to have him info dump to me about rocks.
Right.
I was just like really hoping he would be there.
Nibbler took precedence.
Yeah.
So it sucks, but was the right choice in the moment.
Yeah.
And now you can't.
We'll go next year.
Dog.
Huh? What?
I said, and now you're not bringing home a dog.
True.
I mean, not that the option isn't there, but it's not easy anymore because it's not on the way back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had like a lot of life stuff happening too. And then also I was just really freaking bummed that I have no idea why the audio wasn't there. So I'm like, I literally told Stephanie just a little bit ago that if this doesn't work again, I quit. I'm kidding, because this is like something I really want to work. But we're gonna have to figure something out. It was the first time that we have recorded together, so I don't know what it was, but we're gonna continuously move the mouse. Not that you guys will really see that. So if we pause for a second, it's because we're making sure the audio is working. With all of that,
we're a little stressed.
A little stressy. But with all of that being said, you guys already heard the intro. We're talking about depression today. And hopefully we will have all of the same like funny commentary and rabbit holes that we did the first
Sure, it'll be great.
It's gonna be great. So, for starters.
So, random side note, I just realized I have a bunch of stickers on this water bottle and I don't have my sticker.
Why are your stickers not there?
I don't know.
Shame.
They're right above me. I'll have to put one on.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So,
depression.
Anyways.
Oh, does this show me time stamps for me to put in the commercials? Oh no.
No.
This is gonna be fun. And by fun, I mean not. Editing will just take a little longer, but that's okay. You guys don't care about that. You're here for the brain stuff. So, depression is very much an umbrella term. Succinctly, it is when you're sad most of the time to the point that it affects your daily life. There are many types of depression, which we'll get into. We'll talk about different symptoms, how it can kind of present. Later on, we'll talk about how it may present differently for us neurodivergent individuals. And we'll talk about some treatment. So events in your life can cause some types of depression, like it can be very kind of situational. While I feel like most of them are more just chemical changes in your brain, because everything just boils down to chemicals in your brain.
Yeah.
So the first one we'll talk about. Would you like to talk about it?
Depression.
That was a very excited depression.
First type we will talk about is major depressive disorder. It gets diagnosed if you have 5 or more of the following symptoms on most days for 2 weeks of time or longer. Those symptoms include loss of interest or pleasure in normal activities, weight loss or gain, trouble getting to sleep or feeling sleepy during the day, feeling either restless and agitated or sluggish and slowed down, being tired and without energy, feeling worthless or guilty, trouble concentrating or making decisions, and thoughts of suicide. One thing that when we first recorded, I feel
like we're just gonna have a lot of callbacks.
So, but I had talked about, I had just
oh, that's right.
I had just come out of the depression. I was coming out of a depression. So I have a problem with I don't remember to get the thing for my meds until
the refill.
Like my refill until I'm out. Or very close to out. And then they text me, like Walgreens sends me a text, and then I'm like, okay, refill it.
Yeah.
And then so it's usually like the last couple days before I'm out.
Right.
And so sometimes if I don't have a refill, like because my doctor requires me to have an appointment before she refills it, it has to be a whole process of then Walgreens has to contact my doctor, and then my doctor has to contact me, and then I have to make an appointment with my doctor, and then once the appointment is made, then my doctor refills 1 month of it.
Okay, to kind of get you through.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been about 3 weeks since we've done that one.
Oh.
By the way, because I had it happen again, but I'm only 2 days now.
Okay.
But then because of time blindness, last time I forgot how long it had been since I had last taken my med by the time I actually got my meds, and I couldn't figure out why I was feeling this way. And it was because it was like a week, because my doctor, I have a note on there that says to text me. They have a texting service. Like they have this texting service, and I have a note in my file in big letters. They've sent it to me.
Do not call.
Like, do not call, send text. And for some reason they still called. Yeah. And so like, it's not that I just won't call them back. It's that they call, I'm not ready for it, and I'm like, I got to do it later when I'm ready. And then I forget.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that I'm ignoring them on purpose because they're calling me.
It's like a call, like an unexpected call is like a surprise. It's like someone knocking on the door now. I'm gonna hide behind the couch. Like, I'm gonna make sure you can't see me, because don't be knocking on my door randomly.
Like, I'm not prepared for that conversation. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do that when I'm prepared. And then I forget. And so then it took even longer. And then finally, it must have been someone who actually read my fucking file. Text me, and I got it. Like, I immediately text back.
Yeah.
And then, but like, I can't text them without them prompting it.
Oh.
Like, I can't get it to work. Okay. And so, like, they have to text me first in order for me to text back. But once they text me, I immediately text them back, and I'm like, yes, refill it. I'll make this appointment whenever, like, whatever, because it's all virtual anyways. Right, but like, it's so difficult.
Like, if they had just read your file.
Yeah, they had just read my file, but it had been a couple days then. And so, yeah, it had been like a week that I hadn't been on my meds, and I hit a pretty bad depression there. It's not fun. But one of the things, the reason I was talking about this is one of the things was the loss of interest or pleasure in your normal activities. And and like, I had like just my executive dysfunction. I could not get myself to do work, and I couldn't get myself to do anything. And so, but then I'm like, I pushed myself to do hobby things that I think that normally would make me feel better. Yeah. And then just hated it. Like, I just didn't enjoy it. Like, I didn't enjoy the hobby things I did. And so then it just like killed the vibe. Yeah. So yeah. That's why I brought all of that whole big thing.
No, I'm good with it. It's good filler.
Yeah.
And it relates. So major depressive disorder presents differently in different people. Obviously we just got like a nice little look into how it affects Stephanie. But it can also be anxious distress, where you feel tense and restless most days and have trouble concentrating because you're consistently worried that something awful could happen. It can be melancholy, where you feel intensely sad and lose interest in the activities you used to enjoy. Melancholy also brings feeling particularly down in the mornings and loss of weight. You can also be agitated, where you're just uneasy most of the time. You possibly talk a lot, move for no reason, and act impulsively. And I mentioned earlier,
I tend to act impulsively a lot when I'm depressed.
That's a normal thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty impulsive to begin with.
I was going to say, like, that's why I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about how depression presents in more neurodivergent individuals, because depending on who you are, you hear talks a lot, moves for no reason, acts impulsively, and you're like, I'm not depressed, but that's me. Yeah. Yeah, that's because our brains are different. So, of course, chemical changes are going to affect our brains differently. But we'll get to that. We're going to continue kind of going through different kinds of depression now, so we can scroll.
Hold on, I need to double check
the volume. Oh, good.
We're still here.
Okay.
All right, so your turn.
I just read a paragraph.
Oh, it's my turn.
It's your turn now.
Persistent depressive disorder is when depression lasts for 2 years or longer. This term covers dysthymia, which is a low-grade persistent depression, and chronic major depression. These symptoms are similar to major depressive disorder, including sleeping too much or too little, eating too much or too little, lack of energy, low self-esteem, trouble concentrating or making decisions, and feeling hopeless. Yeah. So that's another one I struggle with, feeling hopeless. Yeah. I get that.
And like the significant difference there between like depression and persistent is the amount of time. So it's all very time-based. Because of course, major depressive disorder, you have to be experiencing it for 2 weeks. It can still be depression, it's just not major depressive disorder. And then if it's been going on consistently for 2 years or longer, then you're in that kind of higher category there. Another version is going to be your seasonal affective disorder, which funnily enough and ironically enough, the acronym is SAD. This is a period of major depression that most often happens during the winter months when there's less sunlight. Typically, it will go away in the spring and the summer. So when I was moving from Florida to Washington, I had several people express a concern about seasonal affective disorder. So I was literally moving from the Sunshine State to a state that, you know, was painted to me as very dreary and rainy all the time, but really it's really not.
Yeah.
Not as much as I would like. It's been too many sunny days there while I was there. But either way, also too, because of the compared to Florida, the is it latitude or longitude? Bless you. I'm getting latitude and longitude mixed up. What the hell?
Longitude is horizontal because it's long.
Okay, that's helpful. So the latitude, where I was at in Florida, of course, is like one of the southernmost points of the United States. And then I moved to one of the northernmost parts of the United States. And so my days during the winter, the sun wasn't actually really coming up until like 8, and then it was setting by 4, like in the afternoon. So, you know, I'd go to work and it'd be dark, and granted I was mobile, so like I'd still kind of experience the sun in between houses, but for the most part I was in the van under LED lights, not sun. But fortunately it didn't really seem to bother me.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I got affected by seasonal affective disorder, but
no,
it was a concern.
I mean, some people do, and yeah, like you need your vitamin D. I just actually got for John's birthday, I bought him a sunlight, a sun lamp, because he gets seasonal affective disorder.
Oh, does he listen to this?
Huh?
No, he doesn't.
No.
Joe, don't tell him. Okay.
Did he hear you?
Did you hear me?
Does he have his headphones in?
He only has one.
Oh.
Did you hear me? Okay. For anyone who's not watching, and even if you are, you can't see, but my husband Joe is in the room.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe. But anywho's, so that's a nice gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got him that and a fidget toy. Yeah, that's right. He doesn't.
That's literally what I said, was like, he doesn't listen, does he? And then I said, Joe, don't tell him.
Yeah.
Are you laughing at my Band-Aid?
Yeah, I was laughing at your like very dramatic.
Because I have to. So I just pulled a Band-Aid off my leg. And I cannot, like, because I'm always like, oh, it'll be better if I just pull it really, really slow. But then it hurts for like a minute because I'm taking a minute to pull it off. So I have to really dramatically like rip it away from my skin, and then I'm just like, oh, that actually wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid, folks. And I mean that like literally and figuratively.
Just rip off the Band-Aid.
Just rip off the Band-Aid.
But yeah, that does happen up here in these northern states. For some reason, I have it like opposite. I actually tend to get more depressed during the summertime.
Is it because you're outside less because it's so damn hot and sunny? So you're not getting it and getting like outside time?
That's possible.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, because when it's cooler, it's easier to be outside and enjoying nature and nature itself.
Yeah.
I feel like
I do spend a lot of time outside in the cooler months.
I cannot wait. We are getting there.
Yes.
We're hitting 95 degrees in 2 days.
I hate it.
That is not fun.
And the worst part is, I don't know, there's like this like sensor in my brain that like there's like a shift in the smell of the environment around me, and I'm just like, fall is coming.
But not right now. I mean, we've had a morning in the 50s, and I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. But like my brain gets this like, fall is coming, and then all I want to do is wear sweatshirts.
Oh,
like I just want to wear hoodies, and I can't. It's too hot.
It's not there yet. It's not there yet.
But I just like want to cuddle up in my hoodie.
Okay, well, when we have our very awesome Grooming on the Spectrum retreat at the end of October, it'll be wonderfully chilly, and you'll have like make sure you bring warm clothes for those people who are attending. If you don't know what we're talking about, go to our Facebook group, Grooming on the Spectrum, and check out that featured post. It'll tell you all of the information, or just message one of us. And we can link you to it, or just like copy and paste or answer any questions you have. We have 3 tickets left.
3.
And then we are fully booked. Anyways, psychotic depression is most or all of the symptoms of major depression.
I was being unhinged, and then you just went psychotic depression.
It's a little, yeah.
Thanks, Meg.
I mean, it's the next paragraph.
I know.
The next bullet. But anyway, so psychotic depression is major depression. Okay, lose it over there. Plus psychotic symptoms like hallucinations and delusions. You weren't experiencing that, so it was okay. I wasn't calling you psychotic. I don't. I would trust that you would tell me.
Oh, so words. So hallucinations.
Illusions.
So hallucinations. So that's what made me think. So I followed this one guy on TikTok.
Yes.
And he has bipolar. Or no, schizophrenia. And so he has hallucinations. And so he was talking about how he's found his hack for figuring out if the person he's talking to is real or not.
Right.
Is he looks at them on his camera on his phone.
Yeah.
Like he'll like snap a picture or like just go to video.
Yeah.
And so that way he can tell if someone is
real, because obviously the hallucination.
And then like once he confirms it with the camera, his brain kind of will be like, oh, okay, so it just kind of like makes that hallucination go away.
Oh, cool, because it's like, oh, there's proof that this isn't real.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's for long, but
yeah,
I thought it was a very interesting thing.
Well, yeah.
So
it's like, if it's someone I ever knew in real life, like if he's just randomly like holding up his phone to me, that's what he's doing.
Yeah. But yeah, very interesting.
All right.
I thought it was really cool information if I ever have like a bipolar student, or not a schizophrenic student.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not going to say no to someone just because they have schizophrenia.
Right. And maybe they don't know about this cool hack.
Yeah. And so like it'd be nice to know that if they don't know the hack, I can let them know. And it can also be a thing where I could help them. Like if I'm like, here, check this out, you know? Right. But very cool. Oh, it's my turn.
Yes.
Peripartum or postpartum depression is when major depression occurs in the weeks and months after childbirth. Fascinatingly, 1 in 10 men also experience this form of depression.
Yeah. Which I put fascinatingly, because to me that is fascinating, because I did not expect like the father to, I don't know, I thought it was more of like a biologically induced thing, like from going through pregnancy.
Yeah.
So chemicals, man, brain chemicals.
I mean obviously like labor, like pregnancy and labor, that's a trauma on the mother.
Yeah.
In general. Like so like that makes sense. But there are some parts that can be traumatic for the man too. For the you know, if something goes wrong, especially like even if they manage to get it back on track and everybody's fine, like if there is a moment of like, oh my god, you know, I might lose them both, like that's traumatic.
Yes.
So like I could see how that could happen. Or just even watching a child come out of your wife's vagina, that's traumatic in my opinion.
That's traumatic.
So like it's traumatic to watch. I mean, I know it's traumatic, and I think anybody can agree it is traumatic to do it.
Yeah.
But actually like seeing it could also be very traumatic.
It would break my entire brain.
Yeah. My egg donor actually had really bad postpartum. She didn't, she could even like really touch me for like the first like 9 months of my life.
Yeah.
So well, I brought the mood down.
I mean, we're doing an entire podcast on depression, so the mood is kind of down.
Yeah. But I will say, like, she was 17 and I was 3 weeks late. I was supposed to be born on the 1st of July.
Oh.
Yeah, I was late. I was very late. I was very big. I was 12'4".
Oh my.
And I got stuck.
Yeah.
And then they tried the suction. So I actually have a little dent because they tried to do the clamps too.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get me out, so they did an emergency C-section, and like I came out blue.
Oh no.
I'm
she was
fine,
like,
but I bet it was fucking traumatic as shit.
Yeah.
So I get it. And then all those hormones and shit going on. Like,
exactly.
You already have, like, there's already like raging hormones because you're fucking 17.
Well, yeah,
like,
exactly. You haven't even like fully matured.
Yeah. So you're 17, you just gave birth, and the birth was terrible.
Yeah, a longer pregnancy than normal.
Yeah.
Be like 43 weeks. That's a long ass time.
And then you have a toddler as a child. I basically came out the size of a toddler. Like
you just
I was 12'4",
a little long.
Like, and I was very long, and I actually have a picture of my grandpa who he was in his like 40s maybe at this point, maybe even 30s.
Yeah.
And so, but he was like, he did construction work and stuff, so he was a buff dude.
Yeah.
He was about 6'2", I think. And like a pretty buff dude. He worked on the farm, he did construction, and it was him. It's him holding me like 2 days after I was born, and he has both hands like this. Yeah. And I know everybody on the listening, but like he's just he just has his like both hands around me. I'll have to find the picture at some point. Somebody who listens to this should remind me, because I'll forget in about 3 minutes. But yeah, I know there's a picture somewhere out there of me like 2 days after, and he's just like
it's like, your baby's how old?
So I was gigantic. They called me Buddha for the first like year of my life. And then I didn't grow any hair except for the little tail right here at the back of my neck for like 2 years.
I love it.
And then all of a sudden it was like, poof, hair. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Real life examples are helpful to the podcast.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just make sure we're still good. We're still good.
Yep. Okay, we hear audio. Good deal. Or we see it. We like check the mic and make sure the little green bar is moving as I talk.
Yep.
So anyways, we also have premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD. And this occurs, of course, when menstruating people have depression and other symptoms at the start of their period. This can come with symptoms including mood swings, irritability, anxiety, trouble concentrating, fatigue, change in appetite one way or the other, change in sleep habits, again, one way or the other, and feelings of being overwhelmed.
Yeah. I mean, if you kind of think about it, and I wonder if neurodivergent people maybe are more susceptible to PMDD, because if you think about it, like, especially if we have our brains are closer to those of hunter-gatherers,
right? Like,
you think about that, and like, you know, in that kind of situation, making children is like really important. You have to keep right. So your body is probably like meant for it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make this baby, and then it's like, oh, we're not, and it's like, yeah, your body probably, like, I get it, like, yeah, it's like, oh, I just worked so hard to make
this home for this baby, and you didn't give me a baby, so now I'm gonna make your life hell.
Yeah. Like, if you think about it, like,
so if you just stop making the room comfy for the baby that's not coming, like, I wish I could just talk to my body, talk to my brain, my uterus, like just hello. It's not gonna happen. So you don't need to do all this work and then get all pissy about it.
Yeah. Like, mine tried to kill me every month for years. So
yeah. That's why I got evicted.
It was real fucking pissed that I was.
It said maybe they'll listen this time.
Yeah.
Nope. Any homes.
Sorry, that was just like random thought process
No,
that I had.
It's all like, it's all related.
Yeah.
And it's no fun if we just read off of the sheet.
Yeah.
You're adding some hilarious and informational commentary.
Yeah.
Now I know what you need to do before every episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so depression can also be brief and situational. I had mentioned that earlier. It's not always chemistry changes in your brain. Sometimes it's events that happen in your life.
I think it's still chemical changes in your brain, but it's from that traumatic incident.
Yeah, it's like
traumatic incident,
the catalyst.
Yeah, trauma is what sets it off.
Well, yeah, still, as in like it's not caused by yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to argue. I was just like,
no, you're
random
fine.
Thought process again.
You're fine. It's okay. Situational depression isn't a technical term in psychiatry, but you can indeed have a depressed mood when you're having trouble managing a stressful event in your life, such as a death in your family or losing your job.
Mm-hmm.
And now we will take a break and listen to a message from one of our sponsors.
Ow!
Mute. And trust me. I just got to say, you guys, well, first of all, and we're back. Okay. I just got to say, we're recording on Zoom right now, where we normally record using the same platform that we stream into the Facebook group for our lives, which is Restream.io. But we were having a really hard time getting into there. Did the color just like get gray? It's back a little bit now. You see that?
It did change.
I know. I'm like, wow. I'm definitely more red toned than that. Hold on while we fuck with the video here now. Anyways, sorry. So we're recording on Zoom, and because Zoom doesn't tell me a time like Restream does, I can't like find where the commercial breaks are easily again. So I had Stephanie mute us, so that way there was a solid chunk of no audio, so I could find it easier when I go to edit this. And Zoom told us about 4 times, you're muted. You might not have audio during this section. And I'm like, why couldn't Restream have told us? Like, Zoom is a real MVP now.
Right?
But anyway.
Still double checking.
Yeah, no, I support. For a split second, I was like, okay, maybe we don't need to double check because Zoom will tell us. But I'm like, you know what? I am not going to trust technology. So we'll keep checking. So anywho's, now that we've learned a little bit about depression, and I've been foreshadowing to how depression can be present differently in neurodivergent people. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. The YouTubers are gonna love us. Okay. In neurodivergent individuals, depression may look different than neurotypical people, which that seems kind of like duh, right? Because neurodivergent brains work, thank you, so much differently than neurotypicals, and we see that with so many of our struggles being so vastly different. So depression in neurodivergent people is way more likely to look like irritability than sadness. We normally already have, and when I say we, I mean neurodivergent people. We already often have unusual sleeping or eating patterns, so it's harder to kind of tell if there's like a massive change in that. So we just have to pay attention to what our normal is. Neurodivergent people also think differently than neurotypical people, like I said, i.e., in more creative ways, able to see more patterns, or tendency to perseverate, which is a beautiful new word that I've learned for this episode, which means become stuck on a thought. Perseverate.
Perseverate.
Anyways, so these things can be mistaken for signs of depression, or they may increase in intensity when the person is depressed. So if you think about becoming stuck on a thought, is that or is that not hyperfixation?
Yes. Speaking of stuck on a thought, hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Could you put my watermelon in the fridge?
Your what?
My watermelon in the fridge.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I was like, I literally said, I was like, that's going to rot right there on the counter.
No, we're actually planning on eating it. I've been waiting to get
good.
a spice that I wanted to use on
Oh,
it.
did you find it?
My friend is getting it from Woodman's. He works there, so he's on his way back. I just saw my watch. That's what made me think of it. But John
So we're
was
eating
saying,
it tonight.
yeah.
Yay.
So John was
Okay.
saying he likes the watermelon cold, so we should put it in the fridge, and I had forgotten to do that. So now it's in the fridge.
Okay. All right.
There was a reason.
Huh? All good.
The package is secure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
So anyways, now that I've gotten over that, yeah, I have definitely noticed, like, so part of my issue is like I get stuck on a thought, and when I'm depressed, it tends to be a negative thought.
Yeah.
And then that negative thought spirals into more negative thoughts and then turns into a giant negative thought pool and then an ocean.
Yeah, and it just like
and I'm just drowning in it.
gross. Yeah.
Like, yeah. For some reason, this last one, it was like that either John or like someone, I had this feeling that someone was gonna die.
Oh yeah, no, you told me it was John.
Yeah. Well, I kept having dreams about John dying.
Yeah.
And so like I just had this, like I thought someone, I don't know if it was because I was also really worried that Nibbler was gonna die for some reason. Like I just like had this thing in my head that like one of them was gonna die
to go terribly
or someone
wrong.
was gonna die, and I just could not get it off out of my head. And I don't know how it even got in my head.
Yeah.
But then even like I was having fucking nightmares about it. Like and then I do that like when I get depressed for some reason, and I don't know, maybe it's my like one of my biggest fears is dying alone.
Okay.
So
yeah.
maybe that's my thing, but
Right.
yeah, I just had this thing in my head that I'm like, someone is gonna die and I don't know who it is, and I'm driving me nuts.
Right. Stressful.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, my dad's dog died during that time.
That's true.
So I guess I was kind of right. Dun, dun, dun.
Grasping a little bit,
No.
but
yeah, like I just, for some reason, I was just really afraid that everyone was gonna die.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I couldn't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I just, it actually like
nibbles.
My
Nibs.
that hyper focus that I normally use for, researching things like depression, and, doing hobbies and shit, like that hyper focus that I use, kind of just gets onto that negative path somehow.
Exactly.
And and because of the depression, like the depression puts it on that slightly negative path, and then it's like,
yeah, ski slope.
So yeah, that's where I kind of see that kind of like the neurodivergent part affecting it.
Right, absolutely.
So,
and also in a large, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
In a large majority of neurodivergent cases, anxiety was also common. Under extreme stress or depression, neurodivergent individuals are more likely to have psychotic symptoms than neurotypical people, which, as I said before, includes things like hallucinations and delusions. Do you still have the thought?
Yes.
Okay.
So we also tend to have really bad proprioception.
Ooh.
And
Define
so
proprioception for those who may not know.
I don't know the exact definition, but
Okay.
Basically an awareness of oneself.
The sense that lets us perceive the location, movement, and action of parts of the body. It includes a complex of sensations, including perception of joint position and movement, muscle force, so like i.e. how much strength is needed or not for a task, and effort.
Yeah. Which is
also called kinesthesia.
Which is why I have the nickname the Hulk at Calling All Paws. I once accidentally ripped the door handle off the sliding door. Don't know how that happened.
Apparently it's what allows someone to learn to walk in complete darkness without losing balance.
See, it's weird. I have terrible proprioception in the light, but I was out in the fucking woods in complete darkness when we were camping. And like I went out and I found like a nice spot to pee in the woods, and
you were fine.
I had no issue. I was barefoot.
It's commonly known as our sixth sense, our proprioception.
Well, a lot of us have terrible proprioception. We're not aware of our body very well. It's why a lot of us run into things.
And then say sorry and apologize to the inanimate object.
But sorry.
It's okay. We're here for
like, yeah, it's so we aren't aware of we're not aware of what the change is.
Right.
We're just we're not aware that there is a change happening
until it's
hitting us in the face.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I had been off my depression meds for a week until the end of that week when I went to take it, and I'm like, I don't think I've taken this in a while. And I'm like, yep, it's been about a week, hasn't it? Yeah, that makes sense. That's why I've been depressed. I just went cold turkey off my fucking depression meds.
Right.
And yeah, it's my proprioception. I have to work really hard to concentrate on my body. I have to, every morning I try to wake up and really think about where I have pains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just different things. I try to make a little, it's like a snout to tail assessment of myself. I do a snout to tail assessment.
I love it. I'm like,
let's all do a snout to tail assessment of ourselves. Ooh, that might be a fun class. Seminar idea.
Seminar idea.
Who wants it? So yeah. Yeah, that's another reason that it would be different for us as neurodivergents, is where I was getting.
And also too, I'm like, seminar idea, but also imagine recording that for download so people can just listen to it every morning, and it'd be basically a guided meditation.
Ooh,
you're welcome.
Thank you. I like this.
I want a little bit of credit.
Yeah,
but otherwise
we're all gonna work on our proprioception together. Do I have my meditation voice down?
Sorry, I just haven't heard you talk like that. So who are you?
No, y'all, it's gonna be an
no, it can be just us.
Yeah, it's
all right,
gonna
you're
be
gonna
me.
wiggle your arm.
My full-on Wisconsin accent. Wisconsin. Bag.
Bag?
Yeah. I say bag wrong.
I mean, it sounds like bag.
Yeah.
Bag. How the fuck else do you
say that? Say it wrong?
How else do you say
Yours
bag?
sounds right. Joe, how do you say bag?
Well, don't.
How do I say what?
Bag.
Say bag.
Bag.
He says it different.
Does he? Because it all sounds the same to me.
We're gonna have to talk to John about this later. But I
Okay.
say bag weird.
To me,
Bag.
I say the G. My G is silent.
Yeah.
Then you'd be just saying bat. And you don't
Pretty
say
much.
bat.
Bag.
You said bag.
Bag.
Yeah, you're using the G, babe.
Okay.
Because you would
We'll
G.
talk about
Okay.
the bubbler.
Oh, okay.
Hey there, guys.
Hey dear.
That's how I'm gonna start it. Hey there, guys.
We now joke and say order.
Order.
Order. Oh, look at that house order.
That order.
That order.
I didn't even realize I did that one.
I don't know if you do it
I
like that
do.
significantly. I haven't picked up on it.
Okay.
But anyways, neurodivergent people can fall into a depression due to stressors hitting us consistently and without much of a break. So these stressors aren't necessarily like what you would think of, but a lot of these are going to hit home for you guys. These include sensory overwhelm.
Sorry.
Do you want to do a ding every time it relates?
That would be all of them.
I mean, it would be fun. Okay, so sensory overwhelm.
Ding.
Difficulty communicating with others.
Ding.
Difficulty building satisfying relationships.
Ding ding.
Demands in school or jobs that don't match our abilities or needs.
Ding.
Which, I mean, I will say, now that you run your own thing, hopefully
True.
that's a little better.
But I still have to do business shit.
Exactly. You have to do a lot of fucking business shit, and that's not a
Dealing with the government.
the government. The government. Getting consistent negative feedback, which I sure hope doesn't happen.
No.
Or I'm gonna talk to people. Getting consistent.
But I have had that.
Well, yes, in the past, for sure. Getting consistent ostracization,
Have that
teasing,
back.
or bullying from peers, abusive behavior, and then not being able to leave bad situations because, quote, rules and quote, sorry, it's okay, because rules prevent it. So like
rules in quotation marks.
rules in quotation marks. Okay, anyone on YouTube, Nicole, you saw that. She went. Okay, so for the podcast listeners, Stephanie was trying to emphasize the quotes around the word rules. So she had her fingers really close to the mic and did the quotes as if it would make her so you might want to cut that way to the camera.
Don't you know that's how you get the emojis to pop up?
Don't you know?
He said, "Don't you know?"
We like that one a
like
lot.
that one a
Don't
lot.
you know?
Don't you know?
Also, I don't do this for mocking. I'm very good at mimicking, and I tend to pick up slang and accents and different like terminology in places that I stay. And I just happen to really, really, really enjoy the sound of Wisconsin.
I literally talk in fucking like quotes from movies and
Yeah.
random shit that I've like that's how I communicate. I communicate in like quotes and fucking random shit that I see on the internet.
It happens. We're just a meme society. Like it's
well, it's kind of a neurodivergent thing too.
Yeah, and it's still a method of communication, because I mean, if you understand, then that communication was effective.
Well, and like that's the thing is, I think that's why it's become so popular, is because the neurodivergent people have been like, oh, this is a way I can communicate my feelings.
Yeah. That's gonna be a whole nother episode. We'll do an episode on communication.
Sorry, I'm still recovering from laughing so hard.
Yes, that's okay. So I just want
to
emphasize the not being able to leave bad situations because rules prevent it.
I want to do a groomers open mic.
Okay. You got to start writing these down, or you're gonna have to listen to this episode and take notes.
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody tell me later. I already forgot the first idea.
Nicole. What? Okay.
I whispered, Stephanie, take note.
Oh, we're asking John about the word bag. Do you need help?
Yeah.
We're 2 paragraphs away from taking a break.
Okay.
Okay, and we can situate you there.
Okay, we'll situate me.
We'll situate you. Okay, so the not being able to leave bad situations because rules prevent it. Rules in quotes. I would see those as like societal norms. Like, for example, if you were raised Catholic, divorce isn't an option. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah, divorce. So you're.
So it's a little bit less frowned upon now. Like,
well, now
you
but think
can
about,
get
like, back in the
annulments, but it's like
50s
a
and the
whole
60s.
thing.
Yeah.
Like even now, like I think annulments for Catholics, like you have to go through like a whole, like there's like a multi-part class.
Okay.
And stuff.
Yeah, so it's like they want you to be seriously over it.
Yeah.
But like when that wasn't a thing, when you just like you didn't get divorced, like what if your husband was physically abusive to you? Yeah. And because of your religion, you stayed with him because you didn't want to be ostracized by that society.
Yeah.
But that's a big example, but it's the first example I think of.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I think of is like, well, cutting off contact with a parent.
Oh, there we go. Because they're like, oh, but it's your family.
If
like I don't
the amount of times that I've heard, but it's your mom, and I'm like, but I'm her daughter.
Yeah, like
what? She's the adult. Like,
right, she was the adult in the situation.
Yeah, I'm like, she's the adult in the situation. She needs to like also be an adult. Like,
so yeah, for me, it really doesn't matter. We could have been friends for a long time. We could be family. We could be blood. I interact with people based on how they treat me. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't talk to half of my family. I just don't. I am zero contact. They have no way of getting a hold of me. And if they do, they're promptly cut off. Like they get blocked on whatever they try to contact me on because I'm just not interested. And that's a whole other thing. Like I'd love to touch on how easy it is for me to cut people off because that just recently happened. Yeah. Again, and like it took a couple weeks of feeling, and then I don't give a fuck.
Snip, snip. Snip, snip. I'm sorry. In case anybody is wondering, I was using my fingers to snip like scissors. And I said, snip, snip, right in front of the microphone.
Again. Just for further emphasis. Snip, snip. Anyways, we'll definitely tackle that. I'm just not entirely sure what episode that would fit into. Maybe relationships. Maybe we can have like a relationship episode.
Yeah.
Anyways. So the brain.
You almost have to have one for like every type of relationship, though.
We can do that. So many ideas. We just have to record. Create and record. So anyways, with all of these stressors, the brain can only take so much. And when the stress keeps coming and nothing changes, the brain, it can be devastating. There we go. The brain can only take so much. And when the stress, hold on 1 second. The brain's reaction to significant stress over a long period of time that cannot be escaped from or changed can be devastating. The brain can only take so much, and when the stress keeps coming and nothing changes, it isn't useful to keep fighting or trying to escape, so the person goes into a state of collapse. In dogs, would this not be learned helplessness?
What do you mean?
Because we've been put under stressors for so long, it's no longer worth it for us to fight, so we go into a state of collapse, so we stop trying to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
To an extent,
it's kind of like the fawn reaction.
Yeah, but like in dogs, like the learned helplessness.
I don't know what you mean by the learned helplessness.
Oh, okay. So this is a cool thing. I mean, it's not. So it's a state that occurs after a person or dog has experienced a stressful situation repeatedly. They come to believe that they are unable to control or change the situation, so they don't try, even when opportunities to change become available. So this occurs with grooming or with dogs if they're being forcefully groomed or trained and they're just like forced to do it. Sometimes that can cause learned helplessness where they're not actually, oh, all of a sudden they're being good. No, they just shut down.
Yeah.
Because they've learned that nothing they do is going to get you to stop doing whatever you're doing. So they just stop.
Yes.
They just freeze.
And I feel like that's been how a lot of dogs have been groomed for a long time.
And I'm really glad to see the industry kind of changing with that. Obviously, if it's something like there's different ways around. I picked the damn skin. There was a bump.
It happens.
I can't leave it alone. Okay. But anyway, so that's what learned helplessness is. Another large factor is that many neurodivergent individuals have psychological trauma. And trauma arises from states of extreme distress from which it is not possible to escape or fight effectively. Sound familiar? I feel like there are light bulbs going off with everybody. Like, they talking about me? Not assuming things, but I feel like it's a pretty commonality, pretty large commonality. But the person then has to deal with significant fear and avoidance of things associated with the traumatic experience, along with other symptoms of trauma. Trauma can come in all shapes and sizes and does not have to be the large experiences we typically think of. Now, I know we don't exactly agree with this terminology, but it is a way I found it explained, which makes sense. I just don't like the words they used.
Yeah.
So we'll explain why. I saw something that talked about big T trauma and small t trauma, where big T trauma refers to the quote classic trauma, which
quote
quote that's a thing now, which encompasses rape, serious bodily harm, disasters, etc. And then small t trauma is more like death by 1,000 cuts, where it's a ton of small experiences that produce the same result. So this can be seen when someone has many, many negative experiences interacting with people, which can be being dismissed, not listened to, not validated, being told our own experience is wrong, or being told we're not bad, or that we are bad or not good enough.
Yeah.
We don't like the terminology though, because
both are just as bad as the other, or I think small t trauma is actually worse.
So I don't like how the word small makes it
big
seem
and
inconsequential.
big and small makes it seems like one is like not as bad as the other, but
I left it in there to kind of denote what the classic trauma is. So I'm like, what can that be?
I think we had an idea and I don't remember what it was.
No, because I was in our first recording. We'd have no audio.
Oh, it was
you got it.
It was like acute trauma.
Ooh, acute and
chronic trauma.
I'm gonna just put that in there for
future reference.
Oh, look, and it already knows.
Yeah. So yeah, it was. I think we were thinking like acute and chronic,
because acute happens like
it's like
a singular like a singular event, where chronic
is like
your chair.
Yeah, where it's like constantly.
Where chronic is over time.
And yeah, like it can be like I think chronic trauma is way more damaging.
Right.
You know, not that acute trauma isn't like it is very damaging, but
like
you don't see as much. It doesn't take as much healing, and it also like it doesn't tend to like completely change a person's personality because of it.
Right.
Where this chronic trauma, because you kind of have to learn to survive of some sorts. I mean, you're basically always in fight or flight at that point. And like, not only is that damaging to your brain because like, you're just constantly worried, you're trying in survival mode, like,
damaging
but
everything in your body.
It's damaging to your body. And so you're doing, and it changes your personality because you're doing whatever you can to survive.
Right.
And sometimes that's not good things. Maybe you wouldn't have done that, we see that a lot in, movies and stuff where it's like the villains are because of a trauma.
Because of a trauma that happened to them.
Or usually it's, and a lot of times it's chronic trauma. you know, like they
Like,
were
Meet the
abused, or
Robinsons.
Meet the Robinsons.
Yep, because the villain in that one was a little boy that got left out and bullied, and
Yeah,
he turned into the villain.
yeah, like
Mhm.
that. So, yeah, I just didn't like their terminology, but yeah, I think they're both very
Yeah,
important to deal with and
recognize.
So,
Like, not appreciate, but like, oh, what word do I want? Evaluate how that could be potentially affecting you.
yeah. I know I'm still working through a lot of my chronic trauma, and there are some things that I've had to deconstruct about the way I act or the way I do things,
Right.
because I've realized that it was based off of trauma. I bring this up in one of my classes, actually, that, you know, trauma can, and I actually bring it up in a couple classes, but like, the entrepreneur divergent, I talk about how you have to kind of think back, you have to deal with your trauma first, and then you can work on your system. Because a lot of people who are struggling, a lot of neurodivergent people who are struggling with figuring out systems, it's because they're stuck in their trauma and what that trauma has put them into. Trauma has kind of put them into a box that they need to get out of. And so that's kind of what I talk about in that class. I talk about it also in classes with my communication class. How you need to recognize that other people might have trauma about things, and so learning to work with the way that they communicate is important, though it is still a two-way street.
Exactly. So on that note, let's take a message or listen to a message from one of our sponsors. And we're back. And this is the most fun section, and that is mostly going to be fun for you guys and not fun for me, because we're going to be talking about medications this section. Medication and psychotherapy, but the majority of it is medications, and I will be saying their real names and their brand names, and there are a lot of words that don't make sense. So, but it's a fun challenge. But yeah, so overall, medication and psychotherapy are effective for most people with depression. We will talk about like different levels of antidepressant medication. And then in our last section, we'll talk about kind of the more unhinged.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's not on the video. And even if it was, I don't care. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe don't. Because if your proprioception of where my body is, I don't know what word that is, but like I'm gonna get hit in the face. Anywho's, so doctors will often start.
Oh, by the way, John started saying any whom's now.
Yeah.
He's like any whom's, and I'm like, what?
Like, where did you pick that up? Meg.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm glad it's rubbing off just as much as like I'm absorbing. So doctors often start by prescribing an SSRI or a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. They don't fully know how it works, which is funny, and that's actually a lot of things in science and medicine where they don't actually know why it works, they just know that it does. So serotonin has to go through synapses to get to the brain cells to affect your mood. And as Stephanie has talked about before, I think, but would you like to tell us about synapses and how they're different?
Oh,
with us?
So they've done
brain scans.
Thank you. On neurodivergent brains versus neurotypical brains. And so with the synapses, so everybody is born with these synapses that connect all the brain cells together, and we're all hyper connected as babies. And then as we get older and we're like learning, our brain becomes more efficient by like pruning some of the
snip
by pruning some of the different
that,
connections
like, aren't being used or aren't the most efficient
to make it more efficient. Well, for some reason, neurodivergent brains, they do it, just not at the same speed. So we tend to be more hyper connected. And so that's why we tend to take longer to process things.
It's got a longer path to go.
Yeah. So
because of having all these extra synapses, a lot of us will blow through our serotonin that we have, and it's not like a magically refilling like
bottle. Yeah, that was my theory about it.
What?
That we were talking about it. We were talking about, that's my theory, is that because they don't know exactly how they work.
Right.
But my theory is that because we're so hyper connected with our synapses that we just our serotonin just goes and trying to find the right way to get there. Right. And so we run out of it a lot quicker.
Right. So these SSRI medications keep the serotonin from being wasted because it's basically it keeps the serotonin from it makes it more efficient. I don't have like really good words for you because they don't know how it works.
Yeah. I'm thinking that the SSRI comes in and kind of blocks some of the synapses to try to make it more efficient. But yeah, I don't know.
Maybe we'll find out. They're generally considered safer and cause fewer bothersome side effects than other types of antidepressants. And here's where the fun starts. So examples of SSRIs include citalopram or Celexa, escitalopram or Lexapro.
That's what I'm on.
Yeah.
I'm on the Lexapro and I'm buying things online.
The song that they've been playing, and it's like, it's very much like in my head.
Yeah.
And I don't know many words besides I'm on the Lexapro
and I'm buying
things online. Okay, anyways. See,
just
it's a very catchy.
Like I'm alive.
There we go. It's a very catchy beat and it's very relevant.
It's called Saddy Daddy-O.
There we go. Saddy Daddy-O.
I'm a sad daddy-o. Sorry.
Fluoxetine or Prozac.
Fluoxetine.
Thank you. Paroxetine or Paxil or Pixiva. Sertraline or Zoloft. And Vilazodone or Vibrid. A second category of antidepressants.
I gave fluoxetine to Chiana at one point. I tried.
You tried.
She did not take it very well.
Oh no.
We tried everything. We tried liquid.
Yeah.
So we could like put it in her food.
Yeah.
We tried all sorts of different flavorings.
Yeah.
Didn't work. She would
So you
need
just
it.
want to eat.
And there's no way I'm wrestling her to stick it
No.
down her throat.
No, not that cat.
Nope.
Not that demon spawn. So SNRIs are a different category of these antidepressants, which stands for serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. So they block the reuptake or reabsorption of the neurotransmitters serotonin and norepinephrine in the brain. So examples of these include duloxetine or Cymbalta. Depression hurts. Cymbalta can help.
Or it can't.
Or it can't, and we'll talk about that.
I'll let you finish, but I have something.
Okay, sure. Venlafaxine or Effexor XR. I told you this would be fun. Desvenlafaxine or Pristique or Cadezla. I want to know how they come up with these names. And levomilnacipran or Fetzima. Okay, your turn.
So something to point out with that, the SNRIs, well, with any meds, you should always check on what, like, always look into them, because not only is there side effects, but you also want to know what happens if you go off of them.
Yes.
And the reason why is because I took Cymbalta.
And it did not help.
It did not help. It wasn't even so much for my depression. It was, they were throwing everything at me. When I was dealing with my endometriosis, they just threw a bunch of shit at me. And they're like, try this. And they wouldn't let me get my uterus out until I tried all of the meds. And so, I tried all the meds. But Cymbalta, might be able to help you, but on the way back down, if you stop taking it, you're going to feel like you're dying. And so I'm really sensitive anyways. So like, even if I take like ibuprofen for a couple days, I will feel a little bit of like a withdrawal symptom.
Yeah.
But there is actually like rehab centers for Cymbalta, like rehab programs for Cymbalta, because coming off of Cymbalta can actually be dangerous. When I went on it, and so norepinephrine has effect on your blood pressure and your heart pumping. I was on it, and normally my blood pressure is very, very low. And the reason I wanted off of it was because instead of my normal 110, 115 over 70, I was shooting at like 170 over like 92.
Yeah.
And it was ridiculous. And they wouldn't actually just, they were like, no, just keep trying it. And they wouldn't listen to me. And I told them I didn't, like, my blood pressure was high. My heart was always pumping fast. And I'm like, no, I want to get off of it. And they wouldn't take me off of it. So I decided I was going to take myself off of it. Well, no one told me, and they didn't even realize it could happen. There's withdrawal symptoms that come with Cymbalta. Luckily, I was on a very low dose, because if I tried to go from a much higher dose, I could have died. Because I started having like dizzy spells, like fainting, like I just felt like garbage. And then the worst was the fucking brain zaps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Acute withdrawal.
Yeah. So I would have brain zaps where it would just like a little shock through my head, and just, and it hurt like a motherfucker.
Until recently, many clinicians were unaware or dismissive of this symptom. And we talked about what it does to us to be chronically dismissed and not validated and told our experience is wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, not saying you shouldn't take it. But like, in order for me to finally get off of it, because I tried going cold turkey and felt like I was dying. And so I went back on it, and then I consulted with a different doctor who was, I consulted with my gynecologist, and he was able to tell me that you can like, because I was on the lowest dosage. And I found out you can actually open up the capsules and there's little balls of like medication. And so I had to open up the capsule and count out the little balls. And every day I'd have to take out one little ball.
Yeah. So
and there were so many little balls. Because I even tried taking like, like half of it. No.
Yeah.
In order to survive through it, I had to go one little ball at a time.
Yeah.
One little ball at a time. So I am never wanting to do that again. So just be aware when you are going to take a medication. And hopefully you have a good doctor that will tell you these things.
Right.
But don't just go by their word. Go and research it. Do a little search. You can find like a lot of times you can find like Reddits and stuff where you can see, and I know that seems silly, but like Reddits and stuff, there people will talk about their actual like their what happened with them, so you can kind of at least be prepared if it's something that's happening to a lot of people.
Right.
So just research, look at Google Scholar and see if there's any like studies on it, because sometimes there's like outside studies that will test a drug that didn't actually like that they don't actually list stuff from that study because it wasn't to do with the company.
Right.
So like do your research and just make sure that and are prepared for whatever things could happen. So and unfortunately you can't always trust your doctor. Not saying that you shouldn't talk to your doctor, but also
like don't
educate yourself too.
Yeah.
Where are we?
We also have tricyclic antidepressants, which can be very effective, but tend to cause more severe side effects. For this reason, they generally aren't prescribed unless an SSRI, that first category, has been tried first and has failed. So these medications function by inhibiting serotonin and norepinephrine, so similar to the SSN or SNRIs, reuptake within the presynaptic terminals, which results in elevated concentrations of these neurotransmitters within the synaptic cleft. So the increased levels of norepinephrine and serotonin in the synapse can contribute to that antidepressant effect. It's just a different way of doing it that has more side effects, so it's not like the first string attack. These antidepressants include imipramine, which is tofranil, nortriptyline, which is Pameler, amitriptyline, doxepin, and trimipramine, which are all Sermonto, desipramine, which is norpramin, and protriptyline, which is Vivactyl. The last solid chunk of ones here are monoamine oxidase inhibitors, or MAOIs. These come with serious side effects, and as such, they're only prescribed when you've been through other drugs and they haven't worked. So an enzyme called monoamine oxidase is involved in removing the neurotransmitters norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine from the brain. So MAOIs prevent this removal from happening, which helps make more of these brain chemicals available to affect changes in both cells and circuits that have been impacted by depression. That sounds great, right? But this class requires a strict diet because there can be dangerous or even deadly interactions with specific foods. These medications include tranylcypromine or Parnate, phenelzine or Nardil, and isocarboxazid, Marplan. There is a newer MAOI, selegaline, or Emzium.
That's a fun word.
Selegaline, yes. Which sticks on the skin like a patch instead of like an oral pill. And it may cause future side effects, but that's still not going to be a first string attack. So regardless, you cannot combine these medications with SSRIs. I don't know why. I just know that they cannot be combined. However, like you can combine some other ones, and we'll get to it. There are just atypical depressants, which are medications that don't really fit neatly into other ones, like other categories we've talked about. And that includes bupropion, which is Wellbutrin.
I take that.
There you go.
I actually don't take it so much for depression. That one is more for my ADHD.
There you go.
They use it sometimes for ADHD. It worked for me.
Well, good. Mirtazapine, which is Remeron, Nefexidone, Trazodone, and Vortioxetine, which is all Trintellix. So medications can be added to an antidepressant to help enhance the antidepressant effects. 2 antidepressants can be combined, or mood stabilizers or antipsychotics can be prescribed depending on presenting symptoms. Because of course, if you're experiencing psychotic depression where you have the symptoms of major depressive disorder, but also the psychotic symptoms of hallucinations and delusions, you're going to need more than just an antidepressant.
They give a lot of I just read the word, you just said the word, mood stabilizers. They give a lot of the mood stabilizers to Alzheimer's patients.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
I mean, it makes sense. It's a very scary time for them too.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Your turn. I did all the medication. You can talk about psychotherapy now.
All right. So let's switch from medication to psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is a general term for treating depression, but talking about your condition and related issues with a mental health professional. It is also known as talk therapy or psychological therapy. Different types of this therapy, such as cognitive behavioral therapy or interpersonal therapy, can be very helpful when treating depression. Which I think we had actually did we had Googled it in the last time that we did it.
We did, and
we looked up.
I will tell you.
Yeah. So cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay. It's a form of psychological treatment that has been demonstrated to be effective for a range of problems, including depression, anxiety, alcohol and drug use, marital problems, eating disorders, and severe mental illness. So basically what it does, it's got several core principles, which is that psychological problems are based on faulty or unhelpful ways of thinking. They are also based on learned patterns of unhelpful behavior. So the whole part of it, cognitive and behavioral, it's in the name. It's efforts to change thinking patterns to then change behaviors. So it would be helping to use problem-solving skills to cope with difficult situations, learning to develop a greater sense of confidence in one's own abilities, facing one's fears instead of avoiding them, using role-playing to prepare for potentially problematic interactions with others, and learning to calm one's mind and relax one's body.
Okay. And then interpersonal therapy?
Interpersonal. It's still in my history. Basically, focuses on relieving symptoms by improving interpersonal functioning. It addresses current problems in relationships rather than childhood or developmental issues.
Okay.
Yeah. It's it's structured, time limited. It's usually a 12 to 16 week thing. Focuses on here and now relationships and aims to improve interpersonal functioning and social support. You can have it in one-on-one formats or in a group.
All right.
So there we go.
Psychotherapy can help us adjust to a crisis or other current difficulty, identifying negative beliefs and behaviors and replace them with healthy and positive ones, explore relationships and experiences, develop positive interactions with others, find better ways to cope and solve problems, identify issues that contribute to your depression, and change behaviors that make it worse, regain a sense of satisfaction and control in our lives, and help ease depression symptoms, ease depression symptoms, learn to set realistic goals for our lives, and develop the ability to tolerate and accept distress using healthier behaviors.
Yeah.
That was a lot. I don't remember where it came from, but we had talked about at one point there was a type of therapy where it kind of like you taught them how to deal with yourself or themselves by like kind of like almost teaching them therapy.
Oh,
Like
I don't remember.
so that they can understand it more. Basically, it was like teaching them the why, you know. And that's my thing is I'm like, I want to know the why. Why am I doing this? Yeah. So yeah, but I remember talking about how my therapist did that. Like she's more of a like yeah, that's what this is, and this is how, you know, it works. And
right.
Yeah. So yeah.
I think it's about time to take our last break and listen to a message from one of our sponsors. And we're back. So we talked about some pretty standard stuff of medication and psychotherapy. But what happens when this stuff doesn't work? What do you do then? Do you just live with it? No.
You get unhinged.
There are some fucking unhinged things you can do, because science, when you think about it, science and medication or in medicine are just like super unhinged, because it's like some of these things we're going to talk about, it's how did they think to try this? And like what could have gone wrong, which I mean, we're all the better for it because it's something that helps, but it's still like it's a little crazy. And this is also where we will have Stephanie's famous rabbit hole.
Is it really famous?
I am calling it such.
Okay.
I'm
famous.
The long awaited Stephanie's rabbit hole. Science is fucking unhinged. So we'll talk about a lot of acronyms, basically, is all it is.
I would like to say, like, so I recently read a book called Neurotribes.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was that read it or wrote it. But when I say read, I listen to it. I have to listen to it.
Is it this? Steve Silberman?
Yep. Steve Silberman. And so he talks about like the whole history of autism and like how like science has changed around it. And like there's some fucking unhinged stuff in there too. Like just some of the weird shit that they've come up with for science, and it's like, how'd you even come up with this?
Right.
But yeah, like autism has a very interesting background with all of this too. And they're still continuing to do weird things to people today.
Yeah. Yep, indeed.
But I mean, just not that long ago, they were I believe it was like the 70s, is they had a big thing about autism being all about like diet. You know, like where they were like, and not like diet, like body health. So they were like,
Okay.
they were doing all these weird cleanses and like, you know, all of the heavy metals
Yeah.
and all of that.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
might have
yeah.
been more recent. But then they've had where who was it? I think it was the guy, I don't remember his name. There was a guy that he made a big thing about it being like the what did he call it? The refrigerator parent. So like the mother who is very cold and like
Oh, okay.
not
Okay. Yeah.
not loving,
Yeah.
you know, or busy, you know, working moms who have other things to do other
Right.
than take care of children.
Right. Right.
That was a thing, like the refrigerator parent, and they're like, oh, it's all their fault. I mean, there's still people who believe that getting vaccinations causes autism.
That was off of one article, ma'am.
Yeah.
You good?
And that's the thing
Okay.
is, even though like we want to believe science is, you know, perfect, it isn't. We have to make sure that we're doing our research on these things, because like you know, there are people that still believe, like doctors and shit, who still believe that autism is caused by vaccinations,
which is insane.
Yeah. I still regularly, I think because I talk about autism, I get fucking ads all the time on Facebook of, did you take this medication while you were pregnant?
Oh my
like,
God.
You may, and now they have autism? Like, yeah. They're still like that. And like, yeah, it's a really good read because you get to see how polarizing things can be and how much that can affect the way things are treated. And so even if it's like you want to believe it's like, oh no, the science says this, there's a lot going on around it. And you know, the person even like doing the science might put their bias into it, just like you know, like I don't remember exactly.
That's okay. I would just like to point out that all of those people who feel that like, especially like with the way that ad was worded kind of thing, set it up for like oh, you can get a settlement from blah, blah, blah. They're acting like autism is a problem.
Yeah.
Like your
people
child
still
is
believe
injured.
autism is a problem.
Your child is injured, so your child is not whole.
And that's how they get unhinged fucking things like what's it, not cognitive, ABA,
applied behavior analysis, which we will get to. We're gonna get through some of
we'll
these,
talk
like,
about that, but like that's how they get to that kind of shit, is because it was bias.
Yeah.
You know, people, you know, up until it was actually the Nazi guy.
Asperger's.
It was actually Dr. Asperger's who, before, you know, war happened, he was one of the first people to actually see us as like being worthy humans, where everyone else was like, no, they just put them in an asylum, like we don't they're broken.
Hans
Asperger's. And yeah, he was one of the first ones to actually see us as being worthy in society, and was actually trying to do things for that, like to try to help these autistic kids be able to live in our world, and use their talents and stuff. And then war happened, and his choice was basically work for Hitler or die.
Yeah.
Not that that's necessarily okay, but I can understand why you make that decision. And there is a lot of rumors saying that I think there is some little bit of evidence that he did kind of, especially for his like especially for like certain younger ones, he would actually bluff on his stuff, on his paperwork, to keep them from ending up in the gas chambers because
Yeah.
they didn't really see autistics as people either.
Yeah, they were considered
So-
disabled, and they did not keep people around who could not like be then exploited for essentially slave labor.
Yeah. So,
Anyways,
sorry.
let's circle back to depression.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna talk about DBS, or deep brain stimulation.
And I would like to point out, we're not saying that you shouldn't do these things if you need it.
Well, yeah, we just find them wild.
They're wild, and also like, how the fuck did they come up with this?
Like, how did they figure this out? Like, listen to this. Okay, you ready? So, deep brain stimulation. This is like, I feel like the most intense one. So, electrodes are implanted within certain areas of your brain. So, you're having your head cut open. You're having surgery on your head to put these electrodes in there.
Opens brain, puts electrodes in brain.
Where are you two people?
I can't turn all the way.
That's okay. That's okay.
Opens
they
brain,
have the same
puts
one.
electrodes in brain.
Slam skull shut. Good to go. Anywho, for the podcast listeners, we are showing our matching tattoos that we recently got, which are rainbow door hinges, so that we may now open our skull, pat brain, say good brain. That's all. Okay. So these electrodes then produce electrical impulses that regulate the abnormal impulses. And how do we stimulate this? How do we control this stimulation? Well, you have surgery on your chest, and a pacemaker-like device is placed under the skin in your upper chest. And then a wire travels under your skin, up your neck, into your head to those electrodes. And then you literally have like a device and can deep brain stimulate yourself. Okay. Deep brain stimulation is used currently and like shown to help Parkinson's disease, essential tremor, dystonia, epilepsy, and obsessive compulsive disorder.
See, like a lot of these things, I definitely understand, and I can even see like really bad depression, like wanting it.
Yeah.
It just not for me, man.
And it's being
I'd rather be depressed.
It's being studied as potential treatment for Tourette syndrome, Huntington's disease in Korea, chronic pain, and cluster headaches. So that's deep brain stimulation.
Deep brain stimulation.
We also have some more electricity here. Because I mean, your brain, I mean, we say it's a computer, there's like electrical stuff happening in there.
Yeah.
So we have ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy. So this is a procedure done under general anesthesia that passes small electrical currents that I'm sure if you could hear them, they would sound like that, which intentionally triggers a brief seizure. They are intentionally causing a seizure in your brain, which seems to, I pulled that wording directly, that is verbatim, it seems to cause changes in the brain chemistry that impact the function and effect of neurotransmitters in the brain. So they're not even like solid on that. They're like, yeah, no, looks like it helps.
Yeah, like maybe.
Let's cause another seizure.
Let's see if that works. Let's just seize you a little bit. Maybe we'll stop your heart at the same time. We'll just remove that tumor in the same.
Right. So it's used to treat severe depression,
Sorry.
treatment-resistant depression, thank you, severe mania, catatonia, and then agitation or aggression in people with dementia. It's often chosen as the form of treatment when medications aren't tolerated. So whether they like physically can't swallow a pill, because I actually know someone who has that legitimate problem, or they're just like unwilling, they don't want to take like a daily medication or 5, or other forms of therapy haven't worked. So like this would not be your first string. You would not go to the doctor, get diagnosed with depression, and then they're going to go like pass electrical shocks through your brain to cause you to have a seizure. Like there's a certain step, like a certain process here. Yeah. But yeah, and then the last one, which to me feels the most mild and seems fun, kind of, is TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation.
See, I imagine this one being kind of like feeling kind of like if you've listened to the
Yes, where it
dual,
itches my brain.
yeah,
Yes, so that's what
the
this I can't think of what it's called.
dual
It's that,
something.
but hold on one second, guys.
There's this the music that it goes from side to side and it's a do 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 and it tickles your brain.
the effect that me what is
Binaural beats? Is that what it is?
maybe move the sound left and right. No, I don't. Okay, let me look that up. Hold on. Bear with us, guys.
We're working on it.
We are learning as we are. Auditory illusions. There are different tones and they have to be listened to separately. I don't think that's quite like, it's not when you do it with music, but it's more of like a instrumental.
Oh.
Anyways, I'm sure you guys saw the TikToks where they're like, either you listen to headphones or you turn your phone to the side.
Yeah, and it scratches your brain.
And it is the weirdest thing, but it feels amazing. And so what we think that is well, not that it is, but we think this would feel similarly. So if someone has had transcranial magnetic stimulation done, please tell us. A treatment coil is placed against the scalp and it sends brief magnetic pulses to stimulate nerve cells in the brain that are involved in mood regulation and depression. The biology of this is not understood, but the stimulation does seem to ease depression symptoms and improve mood. And I would like to mention that this one doesn't involve surgery or seizures. So I am much more likely to want to try this one.
Yes. Yes, this one doesn't seem quite as intense.
I'm just like, is any of my jewelry magnetic? Because that could pose a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like real metal. I don't set off airport.
Yeah. No, like I go and I've had my piercing in for MRIs.
Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, that'd be detrimental.
I can't take it out. It's stuck.
Oh, I remember that. Okay, we'll talk about that. Anyways, the last one, which is where Stephanie's really gonna go deep in this rabbit hole. And it's something, I guess, more autism related, but I feel like this has been used for depression. So it all relates. Yeah. It's fine. Okay. Yeah,
they do use this for depression.
Okay. Applied behavior analysis. I'm going to look up the definition because I feel like it as a whole is actually fine, but it's been weaponized and corrupted.
It's dog training.
So it's a type of interpersonal therapy in which a child works with a practitioner one-on-one. The goal is to improve social skills by using interventions that are based on principles of learning theory. So let's see. It's also called behavioral engineering. That's a funny word to use. It's based on the principles of respondent and operant conditioning to change behavior of social significance. Do you remember Pavlov?
Mm-hmm. It's dog training. It is training children to be neurotypical and hide their neurodiversities.
Also now I'm like, did I get it wrong? Did he do classical? I think he did classical.
Still.
Yeah.
What is the operant conditioning again?
Oh, my bad. I should know this, but classical conditioning was Pavlov. Operant conditioning was Skinner, B.F. Skinner. I knew that. So classical conditioning focuses on involuntary automatic behaviors. So like a neutral signal before a reflex. So the classic Pavlov's dog is he would introduce food to the dog and ring a bell.
Mm-hmm.
The dog would salivate at the food. And after enough times of doing that, he could just ring the bell and the dog would salivate. There'd be no food because the dog then was like, oh, food and bell. Bell means food. That's one and the same. Yeah. Operant conditioning, which is what is used in ABA or applied behavioral analysis, is
can I put this in another term of classical being such as maybe women are consistently
Okay.
consistently told their worth is only with their sex,
Right.
and therefore they only know how to have relationships if they
Right.
have sex.
Right. Based off of,
which would be classical conditioning, maybe not obviously on purpose, but
right. Well, yeah,
it's a thing. And that would be like a Pavlov kind of thing, like where you don't even realize it.
so here's a good example of operant conditioning because it focuses on using either reinforcement or punishment to increase or decrease a behavior. Bear in mind, when we're talking about training a dog, at least, punishment doesn't mean like punishment. It just means like the removal of a good thing.
Yeah.
Versus
it could be like you're
smacking the
not
dog
getting ice cream
because you behaved this way. That's a
Yeah.
punishment. Okay, so through this process, an association is formed between the behavior and the consequences of that behavior. So a trainer is trying to teach a dog to fetch a ball. When the dog successfully chases and picks up the ball, the dog receives praise as a reward. When the animal fails to retrieve the ball, the trainer withholds the praise, because if you praise them not retrieving the ball, that's rewarding that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, the dog forms an association between the behavior of fetching the ball and receiving the desired reward. For example, imagine a school teacher punishes a student for talking out of turn by not letting the student go outside for recess. As a result, the student forms an association between the behavior, talking out of turn, and the consequence, not being able to go outside for recess. Typically, as a result, the problematic behavior decreases. Also, please note that that problematic behavior is based on societal norms and what is expected of us in a school system that is created for neurotypical children.
Yes. Which I'm going to plug another book. We've been listening to Temple Grandin.
Visual
Thinker.
Right? Let me see.
I think it's visual thinking.
Visual thinking, the hidden gifts of people who
think in pictures,
patterns, and abstractions.
Yeah, so it's really good. Talks about thinking in pictures. And she talks a lot about how our school system has become so much about the numbers
testing.
Yeah, the standardized testing, that we're just washing out all of the talented people who could do well in things, but we don't ever get a chance. So like removing
all of the people,
like when they're removing like shop class and like home ec and stuff like that, and we're losing those skills. And so these people who she was talking about how there's been studies that there's like words, I've got it. So there's been studies that show that like in a situation where they have to think on their feet, engineers do not do well because they aren't used to being like out in the field. So there's like, but where like a mechanic from Joe's mechanic shop down the street could think on his feet and try to come up with a solution on the fly, because they're used to being in the field and having to do that. And those are the people that we really need. We're lacking because we have been washing them out.
Do you want to puke in your mouth a little bit? It talks about catching signs early and doing behavioral stuff in as little as 15 minutes a day to catch up your delays
and your child in 15 minutes,
and learning how they can change the trajectory of their child's and family's life. That's disgusting.
So she talks a lot, and in a way it's kind of like saying how ABA, like, you're teaching them how to act neurotypical, which causes a lot of stress. And then you get those constant stressors. Because you're not always going to get it right. Because also too, at least for me specifically, I got to know the why. And if the why doesn't make sense, or I think you are wrong, I am simply not going to do that. Or I will, and just be really confused and frustrated about it. And it's
Keep going.
So yeah, and
I'll
like
take it back.
I don't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, so what she's talking about is like we're basically taking these kids who would probably be good at that, but they aren't, you know, their skills aren't on standardized testing. And
Right.
so
then they get washed out of school.
They get washed out.
They hate learning. They
Yep.
don't like going to school because they feel like they're always wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're likely facing ostracization, bullying, whatever.
Yeah.
From their peers. And then like they just don't end up pursuing because they don't want to go learn a new thing, even though they might be really, really good at it.
Yeah. I mean, I probably could have went to college. I'm glad I didn't. But like
waste of time.
I actually got turned off of it, and for a long time just felt like I just wasn't going to be good at anything and I was going to have a shitty job because my counselor told me that.
Yep. So
you know,
not succeed
because I wasn't
school.
Yeah, but it was because I wasn't good at things like algebra, which she actually talks about in the book. Algebra is actually like the least used outside of the like school.
Yeah. And
it is consistently the thing that holds people up in school.
Yeah.
Like studies are showing that
I loved algebra. I hate math.
Yeah.
But geometry was a lot of fun.
But you're also more of a verbal thinker. Where I am a visual thinker and I cannot. Algebra was bullshit.
Speaking of which, did you see what I shared today? This relates, you guys. It was in my memories, and it was... No. If you started reading between the ages of 2 and 4 and have imposter syndrome about being autistic or have never considered that you might be autistic, please know that 84% of hyperlexic people are also autistic. I did not validate my source. That could be a lie, but it makes sense because I was reading very early.
Yeah. I was not.
And also I'm like, oh, is that a good word I can use? Am I hyperlexic?
Yeah. And like, I could read it, but I could not process it into what it was. Because I think in pictures.
Did you escape yet?
That's my father-in-law.
Aw.
But yeah, so that was the big thing is like it's ABA is training people to act neurotypical. And yeah, it puts a lot of strain, and it tends to put people, because they're constantly getting triggered by that, they're constantly getting that trauma over and over. They're going to be constantly in fight or flight. And then when you're constantly in fight or flight for 30 fucking years, your body can't handle that. Right. Your adrenal glands are dry. Right. Like, your adrenal glands are the whole fight or flight response right there. And if you're constantly pumping out that fight or flight hormone, like, you're gonna run dry. And that's why a lot of there's that whole like the burnout gifted kids. Yeah. Like, there's that thing. A lot of them, it's because their adrenals were going so much, they burnt out because they literally had nothing to keep them going. Right. Like, there was no, like, the chemicals in their body couldn't keep them going. And they burn out. So that's where that trope comes from.
Yeah, no, because I fit into that quite well.
Yeah. So this is what ABA does. Don't put your children through it. It's one thing, like, obviously we do have to live in a neurotypical world, but it's one thing for them to learn, hey,
that they're wrong and they shouldn't do
this. It's one thing to be like, no, you're wrong, don't do it that way. It's like telling left-handed people not to use their left hand, like, exactly. No, you must do it with your right, like that. That was damaging to a lot of people.
Well, yeah, because they literally like had to use their, and now like I think a lot of them who work for us like can't even do anything with their left hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost that skill.
And so now I lost where I was going with that. Shit. But yeah, like, you don't want to tell them they're doing it wrong. It's, hey, some people do things different, and this is what the societal norm is.
Right.
And it'll probably help you to follow within this, try to stick within this specific societal norm, but you don't have to stick within it fully. Like, you can, here's how we can put you in here without making you,
or like, if you're gonna act outside of this, expect people to react weirdly.
Yeah. Like,
so you're prepared, like, okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna do this because I care more about myself than what other people think, but
yeah.
I'm
Like,
expecting people to.
One of the things, like, I'm not gonna have kids, but one of the things when we would talk about in the event eventually having kids before was, I would always, one of the things was, well, if they come to us and tell us that they are gay or that they are trans, how are we going to handle that? And I'm like, I'm gonna let them be themselves. Or like, we would talk about, like, what if they wanted the female Halloween costume? And I'm just immediately like, yeah, they can have that Halloween costume.
Yeah.
Where John thinks of it not as, no, we can't, but as,
I don't want my
child to get bullied because he wore a dress.
Okay.
And which I understand. So I'm like, well, that's why we just have to explain to him, like
people don't find this normal.
Yeah. And like,
it doesn't matter because it makes you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important, is saying, like, this is something that's a little different, and that's okay. And, this is how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, that's letting the kids have that
freedom to choose.
And just that it's empowering to be able to be like, okay, well, then I'm still going to do it. Because I'm happy this way. It's
not hurting
but
anybody.
At least then they know, like, they're ready for when that bullshit happens,
Right. And obviously, like, I mean, we can still teach that some societal norms you can't break. For example, you shouldn't scream in the library.
Yeah.
If you feel like you need to scream, remove yourself from the library.
Yeah.
I don't know why that came to me, but I was like,
no, I think that's good. Like, there are some things that you
really shouldn't, because then somebody's gonna think, like, there's a healthy, like, someone's gonna think something's wrong.
Yeah.
But then that's when you provide other coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Like, if you're overwhelmed at the library, like, pull out your fidget toy or do your grounding exercises.
Yes.
Like, if you can't remove
that was the other
thing.
I'm gonna do a grounding class.
Well, I think we're just about wrapped up here.
Yep.
Cool. Then we
cross our fingers. All right.
We can just end it.
I'm trying.
Wait, will that stop the recording and everything?
I will stop the recording first.